Morning, folks. How are we all today? I'll just get Facebook on board and then we'll get motoring through this. Oh, we've got ourselves a legend. Hello. No, apparently I don't. Thank you very much. Somebody want to sell me solar panels. That's very nice of them. So, legend of today. Somebody punting solar panels. Right. Let's get Facebook sorted out. Right, that's Facebook on board, folks. I'll shut that down now. Right, good stuff. Good morning, everyone. Who's in? Hi, John. Hi, Jordy371. Hi, Akis. Hi, Linda. Lydia. Sorry. Hi, Margaret. We'll see you at the weekend, Margaret. Should be fun. Hi, Melanie. First of the Facebookers in. So, a couple of minutes, let a few people go on. Hi, Alan, on Facebook land. Hi, John. How are you, my friend? Now, there's only one story in the papers today, folks. We'll get to it in a wee minute. We'll let a few people get on board. Then we'll get to this, okay? Now, the main story today, I'm not really qualified to speak about, but we'll get a wee bit more into that in a minute. So let's start off as we always do. Andy Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lancashire, where it's a beautiful morning. Clear, sunny, although it's starting to cloud over a wee bit, and 11 degrees. Not bad for tail end of February. Normally we'd be pissing it down. Right. So as I say, there's only one story in the papers today, folks. One main headline. I won't be commenting on it because I'm not qualified to comment on it. It's a subject I know very little about, and the person in question I know nothing about. But let's get into it. Okay, first up this morning we have the Daily Record, they're answered, and that leads on the main story on the planet today. And I mean the main story on the planet today, and that is that Pope Francis, 1936 to 2025, and apparently he was the People's Pope. Now, as I say, folks, I'm not qualified to talk about these things. I can't make comment on the man or his achievements. I really know nothing about it. I'm not a man of faith. I haven't followed religion or religious leaders for most of, or if not all of my adult life. But I do understand that there are people of faith, and I know that this church, the Catholic Church, is massive. Over 1 billion followers of faith. So it is a huge story, and it's probably the number one story in the planet. Reagan, I don't know if a man of no faith qualifies for the position. Or maybe a man of no faith is eminently qualified for position. I don't know. Anyway, next up we'll put up the Scotsman, if I can find it. Sorry. It's the Scotsman. We'll start with Scotsman this morning. As I say, if I can find it. It'll be one of these ones, I think. I'm going to have to go through them all. Right, here we go. The Scotsman. World mourns death of the People's Pope. Now, as I say, I don't know anything about the man. I don't know anything about the faith, apart from memories of when I was a kid. So, I'm no qualified to say anything on the subject at all, folks. Nothing. So we'll take that down and we'll move on to the next one. And the next one, folks, is the Herald. What the hell's happening here? Well, something funny's happening here, folks. I haven't got a clue where it is. I seem to have disappeared. And it's asking me to add a media source. I hope you can still see me, folks, because I can't. Anyway, next up, we'll get a Herald. But I hope you can see this, folks, because I haven't got a clue what's going on here. And the Herald leads on, a pope for the poor, the downtrodden, and the forgotten. Just say, I don't know. I really don't know. I have not got a clue. An MSP face sack call after bigoted judge remark. Now, that I can speak about. That's to do with Maggie Chapman. And Maggie seems to have got a wee bit carried away with the verdict of the judges in the Supreme Court case. Maggie seems to have lost. Maggie seems to have lost the plot. She's called the judges bigots because of the ruling. Maggie, as I say, seems to have lost the plot, folks. Let me make this quite clear. The judges didn't give you personal opinions. The judges gave a judgment on how a piece of legislation from 2010 was written. And that piece of legislation, which was passed in Westminster, apparently was written with only two genders in mind. So it's no fair to call these. Now, should an MSP in the Scottish Parliament be permitted to criticise judges in a court in a foreign land which has interfered with Scottish law? Of course she should. But in this particular case, she's got it wrong. The judges are no bigots. They're no transphobes. They're none of these things. They gave an interpretation of a piece of legislation. And people really need to ignore what the media is saying and concentrate on the facts. That's the point of doing these programmes. To concentrate on the facts. The facts are the judges were asked to interpret a piece of legislation to see whether the Scottish Parliament had misinterpreted said piece of legislation when writing a new piece of legislation. And according to the judges, the Scottish Government did misinterpret that piece of legislation when writing a new piece of legislation, because the piece of legislation in question, the 2010 Equalities Act, was written with only two genders in mind, apparently. Now, should an MSP be permitted to criticise Supreme Court judges? Of course. But only when there is a case for criticism. These judges did not give a personal opinion. They gave an interpretation of a piece of legislation. That's all. That's all it was. And we need to stick to the facts, folks. You understand Maggie's passion on this thing, but it's incorrect to call the judges bigots in this case. The judges were asked to judge a piece of legislation and to interpret it. They did that. They didn't give personal opinions. They gave an interpretation of a piece of legislation. That's it. Okay, let's move on. The Sun has a the Sun has quite a simple one, and that's passing of Pope Francis. That's it. That's what the Sun's got for us today. The byline Pontiff dies at 88 after final address. Millions round the world mourn. Truly blessed. They say I'm not qualified. I really ain't. So that's as much as I'm going to say on that. The Daily Fail has. I'll put it up. The Daily Fail has, after his final blessing on Easter Sunday, the frail Pope dies of a stroke. Now a battle for the Catholic Church's future begins. That's interesting terminology when we're talking about religion. Battle. And he's returned to the house of the Father. I suppose that's a term that would be recognised within the religion. So we'll take that down. Next up, we have the Loony Rag the Express. What the hell is going on with this thing today? I don't want to add a media source. I don't know what's going on today, folks. Next up's the Loony Rag the Express. We'll see if it'll come up. Well, you'll see if it comes up. I won't. It's up. And according to the Loony Rag the Express, the Pope, who has died aged 88 after final act of Easter devotion, and he touched so many lives. Well, I imagine with 1 billion followers of the faith, he touched a fair few lives. But as I say, that's about it. I'm not qualified to discuss the issue. I'm not qualified to comment on the issue. I'm not qualified to comment on the man. I'll take that down. Next up, we have the Times. And you'll not be surprised to realise it goes in the same story. And the Times says, outsider with a mission to change the Catholic Church. I'm assuming that's because he was the first Latin American pontiff. But as I say, that's an assumption. I don't know what the paper actually means. As I say, I'm not qualified to talk about the subject at all. And the reason why I'm taking such tone is to try and be respectful. As I say, I'm not qualified to discuss religion at all, or to pass judgment, or to make remarks about a religion or its leader, or in this case now past leader. Know not enough about it whatsoever. Right, next up with the Telegraph. The Telegraph's got a byline that I might be able to pass comment on, I think. The Telegraph has one last Easter blessing and his work was done. I suppose that was the case, aye. And Trump ignites fresh market chaos. Now, what the Times is telling us there, I'll blow it up, as new challenge for Reeves as she heads to US for a trade deal with the dollar at a 3-year low. Well, there's a reason for that. People are dumping the dollar as a reserve currency. The BRICS are trading out with the dollar. The dollar's on a shaky peg. So the question is going to be is, why is Reeves heading to America for a trade deal? Is she on her way over to sign a trade deal? Because normally trade deals are negotiated by diplomats. once the countries have agreed with each other, the politicians have agreed they're going to get into a trade arrangement with each other. Normally that would then be carried out by diplomats, and then the politicians would get involved again. The politicians would get involved again to sign the final deal. So is there something you know in the background that we don't know about, folks? That's a good question. Because the way it is portrayed there is that Reeves is on her way to America to sign a trade deal. Which would not be at this point in time advantageous at all to the people of these islands, as America's on its arse and heading for a recession, maybe a depression. And getting tied up with America right now would probably see us being unable to get closer to the EU, which is where the UK government should be going at this point in time. I am aware of that, Eddie. The US government's going to be sued by a lot of institutions in America who have lost a lot of money. I know I'm on a wee screen, Stephen. I just don't know how to get back to the big screen. There's something going on here. Ah, that's better. I don't know what the hell. I must have hit something, folks. Anyway, right, where were we? That was the Times, the Telegraph. So let's move on. To say, folks, there is only one story today, and I'm going to be totally honest. I am not the person to comment on the story in the papers today. I'm not. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can. Because I understand that this gentleman who's passed away had an influence in a great many people's lives. I'm no one of them, that's all. Right, what's the National got for us this morning? Well, it's got an interesting byline. But let's get to it. Voice of peace, tolerance and reconciliation. Scotland's tributes following death of Pope. Praise for commitment to peace in Gaza. See, I don't know whether the man was committed to peace in Gaza or no. I really am. And Sarwar rules out backing wealth tax. Exclusive. The wrong solution, says the millionaire. Anybody surprised that millionaire in charge of the Labour Party doesn't support a wealth tax? Wow. Yeah. There's a shocker. Millionaire doesn't support a wealth tax. Man of the people writing off. People's Party writing off. In England it's ruled by a Knight of the Realm, and in Scotland it's ruled by a multi-millionaire. So much for the People's Party. Oof. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. And how campaigners are working to keep a light on for Scotland and Europe. I haven't read the article, so I'm not quite aware of it, folks. So I'm not going to pass comment on that either. Here we bloody well go again. What the hell's going on here? They're all over the place today, folks. They seem to have disappeared altogether. I'm back in the corner, at least that's something. Now, how did I get out of that the last time? That's not it. Right, folks, we'll just press on with the small screen at the moment. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I'll need to look into it when I get out of this. Right. Next up, we have the eye, and it tells us that Francis was the people's pope. I say I don't know. I really don't. And as I say, I'm not going to comment because I don't want to upset anybody. I really don't. Next up with the Metro, and it has the final blessing. And it's a nice picture of Francis holding hands with a child, presumably on Easter Sunday. And the world pays tribute to Pope Francis. I'm sure it does. Bring that down. Next up, we have The Guardian, which will stick up. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Oh, we're not having much of a day of it today. Yeah, no, right. Neither I am. Don't know how to get rid of this bloody thing. Right, see if we can get it up now. There we go. Groundbreaking head of Catholic Church, Pope Francis dies at 88. I say, I really don't know whether he was groundbreaking. I don't know what he did with the Catholic Church. I have no idea, folks. None. None. And to round up today's roundup, we've got the star. Francis I, 1936 to 2025, the People's Pope. Now, to give you an idea of how little I know about this subject, folks, I didn't know he was the first Pope Francis. As I say, I'm not qualified to discuss religion. I had a look at it as a young man. I had a look at it as a young man and turned my back on it. I understand people have faith. I understand people of faith will be hurting this morning. And as I say, I'm trying to be respectful as I can. I really don't know. I haven't followed Pope Francis. I don't follow religion. So I'm not qualified to speak about it. But I hope I did it. I hope I wasn't disrespectful to anybody of any faith out there today. Because that's not the intention. My intention is never to hurt anybody with my opinions. I try and keep my opinions based on my interpretation of facts. My interpretation of facts. So that's how I tend to do things, folks. And I'm not qualified to talk about the passing of Pope Francis. I don't know what sort of man he was. I don't know what direction he took his church in. But what I read and what I see in front of me today, he was well respected, well regarded, and apparently he did achieve some great things for those of the Catholic faith. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's a period of mourning that people of that faith will be going into, and no doubt over the next few days, if not in the headlines and articles in the papers, I maybe learn a wee bit more about the man. Okay, now I'm going to go now, folks, and try and work out what's been going on with this bloody we restream today. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what I did, but I'll need to work it out. And all the things are back to normal tomorrow. Okay, look after yourselves. Have a nice day. Thanks to moderators for moderating. Thanks for anybody who contributed by super chat. I'm sorry if I missed it. And look after yourself. Back tomorrow morning, 10:30, to do it all again. Bye for now.